You liked what the White Sox did in the trade with the Angels, and not to tell your headline back to you, but the Angels did a good thing by making the trade. The White Sox maybe came out of it better from a trading standpoint. So is this kind of a both sides win or both sides should be happy type thing in your opinion?
That's certainly how I view it. I mean, I understand there's been a lot of, will the Angels trade Ohtani? Should the Angels trade Ohtani? And my colleagues have been a huge part of that. And from a baseball perspective, they probably should trade Shohei Ohtani because the return they get would be massive, and he's going to leave as a free agent after the season. There's some chance he re-signs, but of course they could trade him and just try to bring him back anyway. That wouldn't affect their ability to re-sign him, I think. But instead, they're a couple games over 500. They're a couple games out of a playoff spot. They have maybe the two best players in baseball once Trout is healthy, along with Ohtani, certainly two of the very short list. And this might be the last year they have that. They got to go for it one more time, I think, especially because they're in a much better position this year than they have been at past trade deadlines. But from a baseball perspective, yeah, the White Sox traded two guys, Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez, who are impending free agents, and got two prospects. One who was on the back of my top 100 coming into the season, Edgar Caro, a Cuban catcher with a pretty good eye at the plate, still very young. And then Kai Bush is a giant left-handed pitcher with decent stuff. You might have a back-end starter. But to get those two guys for two rental players seems like a pretty solid return, and also signals the White Sox are finally just accepting they got to start tearing this down because the club isn't good and the farm system isn't good either.
On a side note, because this applies the NL Central, and even though the Cardinals are well behind, we still keep up with what the Brewers and the Reds are doing. Because I just marvel at the Brewers' ability to make moves that are not grandiose, but they just work. What do you think of the pickup of Carlos Santana? They've been hideous in terms of offense at the first base position this season. How much will he help them there?
I think he does help because of the reason you said, right? Because they've been so bad at the position. It's less that I think Santana, I mean, gosh, he's 37 years old, and there's not a whole lot left there, but he does draw some walks. He's got a little bit of power. He's a pretty good defensive first baseman, I think. And so that all seems like enough of an upgrade to justify the deal. They actually gave up. The kid they gave up, Johnny Severino, he's 18. He's playing in the Fire League out in Arizona right now. He's only got 12 games in the United States. He just played in the Dominican last year. But 18 months ago, the Brewers gave him $1.25 million roughly. He's a shortstop, might stay there, got some power, no worse than third base, good swing. Brewers had him give up switch hitting this year. He looks much better from the right-handed side. I saw a video of his left-handed swing from when he was an amateur. Like, he should be a right-handed hitter. It's a pretty big difference. So, yeah, to get that prospect, I mean, he's so far away for the Brewers. It's like, if this guy comes back to burn us, it's 4 or 5 years from now. I understand. But for the Pirates, he should be pretty pleased. That's an intriguing kid who could have a chance to have some value for the Pirates at some point. For a 37-year-old who's going to leave as a free agent.
Yeah.
That's kind of a no-brainer.
That's a heck of a flip by the Pirates. No doubt about it. I want to use the trade, specifically the White Sox and the Angels. Not so much the Syndergaard trade, White Sox and the Angels. And as you know, we are in a kind of an interesting situation in St. Louis. I've been writing and talking about this team since the mid-'80s, and this is the first time they've ever been, quote, a seller, so it's unusual. It's kind of fun in a way. I've been trying to get the answer to this, and it's tough to answer, but the Cardinals, as you know, they have walk-year pitchers in Montgomery and Flaherty and Hicks and Chris Stratton. And DeYoung's not a free agent, Paul DeYoung, but a team that acquires him doesn't have to pick up his option. So in a way, he's kind of a free agent. But what do you think, especially for the pitching market, since the Angels just traded for two pitchers? What is a realistic expectation for Cardinals fans in terms of the kind of return they can get from a Montgomery, a Flaherty, and a Hicks?
I think Montgomery is in that Giolito class of, in terms of effectiveness, certainly. We're not going to see a lot of really good pitchers change hands. It could be those guys, maybe Marcus Stroman, although I don't know. The Cubs are playing just well enough. They may choose not to. you look at the teams that are clearly sellers, they don't have a lot of pitching to trade unless we get a big surprise at the last second. The Mets decide to tear it down. I don't think we're going to see a lot of good pitching available, which helps. It helps if you're the Cardinals. It helps if you're a seller. So to me, Montgomery, if you want to say Giolito got back a top 100 prospect, if you want to break the deal down a little bit like that, you could see Montgomery being the same thing. Giolito's probably worth a little more. He's got a much, much longer track record. But in terms of effectiveness, especially in the current season, they're pretty comparable. So I could see the Cardinals saying, that's what we want. We're going to aim for somebody who's one of your top 3 or 4 prospects. And it doesn't have to be top 100 on my list specifically, but somebody who's regarded like that, especially who you internally regard like that. And I think it goes down a little bit from there. I don't think any of the other players you mentioned could get that same kind of return, and you'd be looking more at 1 or 2 prospect packages where they might be solid prospects, but nobody who's showing up on all our top 100 lists, nobody who's top 3 or 4 in the buying team's organization. That's if you do it individually. If you start bundling them together, you might be able to get more creative and get one better prospect instead.
Right. I was thinking of that too, because that's a good, an example that the White Sox did such a good job of that, bundling 2 pitchers. So that and so they did. They got, as we've talked about, they got good value for their return. Keith Law is with us from The Athletic. I want to ask you about Dylan Carlson. Here's the context. It seems to be a pretty popular view or prevalent opinion that the Cardinals are looking to move him. And I just want to know what you think about that. Now, obviously, we don't know what a return would be, so it's kind of tough to assess it. But if you're the Cardinals, would you seriously consider moving on from Dylan Carlson, or would you put up the caution flag?
I certainly would not move on from Dylan Carlson. I don't know what's happened, because they were certainly very, very high on him while he was a prospect. After that first season, I haven't really heard until this year anything that would make me think that they were moving on from him. And I know the superficial performance this year has been, obviously it's been disappointing, but he is actually hitting the ball a little bit harder and doing it more frequently too. And I think there's quite a bit of upside left. He's only 24. He's not even playing regularly, which is a whole separate conversation. There's more bad in there. It's a little bit of they're not the same player. I like Carlson more, but Matt Vierling was a Phillies prospect who just didn't get a whole lot of playing time and needed a little bit of swing help. But there were some underlying things, even last year when he did not play very well in the majors, that made me and others think there's a better player in there. He's just got to play every day, and he needs, some adjustments, certainly. And they kind of gave him away in a trade for a left-handed reliever, and Vierling's having a perfectly nice league average kind of season for the Tigers right now. And I think the Phillies didn't get enough in return for him because they gave up too soon. And I would worry that the same kind of thing would happen in Carlson's case, except I think Carlson has a chance to be much better, an above-average regular, maybe even more. He's much more talented. There's quite a bit more upside. And I think at 24, he's really only started to scratch the surface.
Yeah, it's such a great response, because I'm conflicted a little bit. You just helped me be less conflicted, so I appreciate that. I can't help but think that John Mozeliak and his associates really have a reason to believe that the market for him would be appealing to them, and maybe that's the only reason why we hear this so much. It's just because of what they feel they could get for him. But again, we can't define what that would be. We have no idea. But it is curious. It is curious. And of course, St. Louis fans are haunted by all the good outfielders who have gone elsewhere. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of a credibility check there, too, about the judgments.
Well, yeah. I think it's fair to say they've given up on some guys too soon. And it's not that, I don't want to criticize them too much, because it's not that everyone thought Arozarena was going to be the player he's become. And certainly Adolis Garcia, the adjustment he's made this year is pretty remarkable. But still, the Cardinals had those guys and did not get adequate value in return for them. It's fair to also say, why would we believe you're going to get adequate return now if you trade Dylan Carlson? He was a first-round or supplemental round pick, one of your top prospects. I think generally regarded, I had him in the top 10 his last year in the minors. I think pretty much everybody had him at least top 20 or so. Like, everyone thought this guy was really good. Why have you changed your minds, and why should we believe you're going to get adequate return for him? Maybe they will. Maybe they know something we don't. It's entirely possible. But I could understand also a Cardinals fan feeling like the front office doesn't have my trust.
That's right. And like we were talking earlier, listen, the Cardinals were absolutely right to trade Lane Thomas for John Lester. Lester really helped them down the stretch in 2021. But from an overview, that's yet another young outfielder who went elsewhere and is a really, really good player, probably even to get a little better. So I kind of put him in that category, except, again, I'm not going to be a phony and say, well, they should have never traded him.
Right.
Because Lester, they had an urgent need for Lester and Happ at that deadline, and it actually worked out pretty well. But so anyway, it's interesting. All right, I want to ask you, Keith Law, if you don't mind, a couple more things. Mason Wynn has been, just in terms of numbers, it's not like I'm watching him play, and I certainly don't have the eye of a scout, but Mason Wynn has been just killing it at Memphis. I mean, his July has been phenomenal, but it even started before that. And could you just give us a profile of his readiness for the major leagues, or some things that could be still at this point concerning that he needs to kind of get better at? Just give us your view as Wynn, as far as someone is going to be a Cardinal soon, one way or the other.
I am a big Mason Wynn fan. And I know I can think of at least 2 scouts who told me they like him more long-term than Jordan Walker. I don't know if I could go quite that far, but I totally understand it too. Wynn is electric. Everything that guy does is quick, athletic, twitchy. It is. I mean, you just dream of seeing players like that who also know how to play, and he really does. He does. I mean, I think he's really proven some of his detractors from the draft wrong. This is a kid who does seem to work hard, who has really good instincts, good IQ on the field. I think he's going to be a tremendous defensive shortstop. We all know it's an 80 arm. He can really, really run. He's got bat speed. And as far as I've seen the data and in-person looks, this guy hits the ball hard enough. I'm not concerned that the bat's not going to be there. I just don't think he's going to have a lot of power. But he does so many other things so well, especially the fact that he's shown a good approach and ability to make adjustments at the plate while being young for basically everywhere he's ever played since they drafted him just gives me even more optimism. Guys who are super athletic and show they've made adjustments should continue to make adjustments. And he could very well come up. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. No, I want you to finish because it's great.
I was just going to say that he may come up and struggle right away because the gap between the minors and the majors right now, it's just enormous. The pitching is so much better in the majors. They could call him up after the trade deadline, and he struggles for 2 months. It's not going to change my opinion. I believe very strongly in the player he is and the player he can become because of his history of adjustment.
You also had Tink Hence on your updated, your July 21st, it was published by The Athletic, Keith Law, top 60 plus some honorable mentions. And I know you had obviously Wynn up there pretty high, Tink Hence. I'm forgetting someone, and I apologize. It might have been a third guy on there. My brain is too cluttered. But anyway, at least those 2 guys. Talk to us, please, about Tink Hence and his trajectory, because he's obviously an exciting prospect.
Yeah, he's really interesting. I think he ended up something like the second pitcher or second right-handed pitcher maybe on my list, which I didn't even realize. Yeah, he was the second-ranked pitcher on my entire list. I didn't even realize. It wasn't deliberate. But I really like him also, only behind Paul Skeens, who was the first pick in the draft 2 weeks ago. If Hence had the bigger workload and had a little bit of a bigger frame, he'd be a top 20, top 15 prospect in all of baseball. I think it's 3 pitches. The arm is electric. There's that word again, but they have a type. And if you find guys like that who have real feel, who really know how to play, they are few and far between, and they offer you the highest ceiling. I like the delivery. I think his strikes have to get better, but I don't think that's going to be a problem for him long term. And they've just not pitched him very much, and there's a huge debate over whether that really does protect guys' health, build them up to handle bigger and bigger workloads. He's a little bit different because he was 17 at the draft. He missed basically his first full pro season, and they are letting him pitch more. I think a couple weeks ago he threw 80 pitches in a start for the first time, and now they've got him doing that pretty regularly. So it does seem like they're building him up to be a real 6-inning starter, 100 pitches. That's basically all we ask guys to do at this point. Can you turn a lineup over 3 times in your better outings? Great. You're good. Off to the races. And he's been healthy, as far as I can tell, for 2+ years. So I don't see a big downside other than he hasn't pitched a ton, and he's a little small.
It's interesting, too, because this is the first time I can recall, at least in recent times, where the Cardinals haven't had, say, a starter at Memphis who's major league ready. I mean, we can debate the quality, and I know that, Liberatore has been disappointing, and if you want to, weigh in on that, you can. We've heard a lot about Graceffo, and I know you've talked about him, written about him. McGreevy is another guy that seems to be doing okay. Do you see either one of those guys, or maybe even both of those guys, Graceffo, McGreevy, projecting them in a way where you say, yeah, that they could definitely be a part of their rotation in 2024? Is that overly ambitious?
No, I don't think so. Graceffo is probably the best of the three right now. I mean, he was best of the three coming into the season, so it's not a big statement here. We've seen a little bit in AAA where it's definitely always been more control and command. And, the fastball's good. Doesn't miss a ton of bats in the zone, so he may have to be more one of those pitch away from the fastball a bit, which I could say the same thing about Liberatore, and which he has not done. I think it's the number one reason why Liberatore has continued to struggle in the majors, even when he has success in the minors. I don't think Graceffo is that far off from being able to help the major league club. Certainly, I would expect him to. He should go into spring training with the expectation that he's going to win a spot, and I think he offers a little bit more ceiling than McGreevy does. Where McGreevy, obviously much more of a strike thrower, but he has struggled to miss even enough bats in AAA and has given up a bit more hard contact. And I don't know if it's a question of more time or if he needs to change a little bit his way of approaching. He's such an extreme strike thrower. Sometimes those guys actually do better if they work a little bit further out of the strike zone, at least working more to the edges, because the stuff he's not going to miss a ton of bats in the zone. He really has to hit his spots to avoid the harder quality of contact.
Keith Law, one more for you, sir. What are your impressions so far of Jordan Walker? I think we almost have to ignore his defense because that's not going to get better anytime soon. But just at least from the offensive part of his game, what have you see? What do you like? Is there anything that concerns you?
Yeah, I'll just sort of agree. Again, talking to a scout the other day who just buried Walker on defense, which it just thinks he's a big guy, and obviously his first step is not terribly quick, but I thought he'd be a better defender than this. I have to be completely honest. Yeah. I'm a little surprised at how much he struggled there, but at the end of the day, his value is going to be pretty much entirely, I think, in the bat. And the fact that he's been so much better since the demotion and then the recall on June 2nd, that he's making more contact, he's getting to a bit more power, he is drawing an adequate rate of walks, I would say. This is all good because he's another one. He was in that same 20 draft with Wynn and Hentz and Ian Bedell, who's back and apparently throwing extremely well. That draft's going to go down as an all-timer for the Cardinals. But we've got to remember, Walker is new. He's inexperienced. He's taken so much less minor league time. For a guy who was considered to be a bit of a project when he was drafted, I'm inclined to give him a very, very long ramp. And I think the fact that they sent him down, he came back up, and he's kind of improved a little bit across the board, pretty much everything you would like to see or would have liked to see from him, that gives me a ton of hope. And just all you're looking for the rest of the season is more of the same. Decent walk rate, taking his pitches, not chasing excessively, not swinging and missing excessively, and you're getting to a little bit of that power. That puts him on track where maybe it's 2 years from now that he really breaks out and becomes a star. But what I see from him the last 7-8 weeks makes me believe that's still there.
Yeah, he's exciting to watch and seems like a great guy too. Just he gets it. He's very mature and so intelligent and everything else. So, Keith Law, thank you for the conversation. Thanks for all the information. I feel like I got a better handle on a lot of Cardinals related things. So, we'll keep reading you, of course, and you're an invaluable source just for good updated information. So, hope we talk again relatively soon. But thanks for your generosity.
Yes, my pleasure.
All right. Thank you. That's our friend Keith Law from The Athletic. So there you go. You got Joe Sheehan. The Dylan Carlson stuff's fascinating.
It really is.
You got Joe Sheehan texting me during a live broadcast yesterday of the Bernie Show. Like, what is this stuff? Why do they want to trade O'Neill? What are they doing with O'Neill? And they want to trade Carlson. It should be the other way around. What's wrong with these people? I don't know. They think they can get more for Carlson. And I said, I'm not defending him. I think that's what it comes down to. And that's true, because he would get more than O'Neill right now because he's younger, can't become a free agent since 2027, until 2027. And a lot of people in baseball, to mention it again, they know the Cardinals. I don't know where this expression came from, and I'm going to say it. I'm going to use one word. It's, it's not all that bad.
Go ahead.
Say ASS. It's okay.
Yeah, I get it.
Like my father one time, and I know that this was one of those old school expressions. It's not like my father came up with it first, but he would say, we'd be at an Orioles game or something, and he'd get he's actually a quiet guy, unlike me, but he'd get irritated by somebody,
Okay. Yeah.
And he'd say, "Holy hell!" He said, "That guy doesn't know the difference between his ass and first base." I never knew what that meant exactly, but
I've heard that one too.
I know it. Like I said, I know it's one of those old things.
Yes.
And so. So anyway, I don't even know how I thought of that, but I did. So now we have Keith Law checking in. He's even more adamant. No, you don't give up on him. No. So see, I like strong opinions because I waffle on Dylan Carlson. I admit it. So I get credit for at least being honest, right?
I'm there with you on him. More people who've watched and you respect their opinions, you go, wow, okay, maybe I got to look at this a little different. And I guess sometimes when you have an expectation on what a guy you think is going to be, and let's just say he doesn't pan out right away, or he's not where you think, you automatically go, well, I'm done with that. And
yeah, it's frustrating.
And now maybe we just got, again, 24 years old is still very young. He's been here a while, but he's still 24, so maybe he can find a way. And then you throw in the frustration factor of the organization hasn't done much to help too many of their young players develop further once they get here. There's a lot of those guys that have failed. And you go, well, it's time to move on from this guy, see if there's another guy who can figure it out on his own, because there he's not going to help him out.
Yeah. No, everything you said's right. I mean, that's a good way to, like, the way you
Liberatore is one of those guys.
Yeah,
it's like, come on, we can't find a way to get use out of this. I would even throw
I don't understand that.
Cabrera in there from this standpoint, Bernie. Healthy, left-handed, 90+. You can't figure out a way to use that. You can't figure out a way to make him better. You can't figure out a way to work with him, because there were times when he was really good, and you just said, yeah, we're done with that. And it just screams off the field stuff, and I get that, but there's got to be a way you can get more out of that as an organization.
And I think, I'm pretty sure, I feel pretty confident and safe in saying, Carlson's a good dude. It's not, there's not a knucklehead factor with him. He certainly doesn't get in any kind of trouble. But there's something about him that's just kind of bugging the Cardinals. I'm not talking about his teammates. I'm talking about Marmol. Where the hitting coaches add to this. The front office certainly seems to be limited patience. There's something about him, and it could be no more complicated than just his lack of growth as a hitter. Because when he came up in 2020, he played so well against the Padres in that playoff series. Yep. The 2021 season, I got it in front of me, he got off to a little bit of a slow start. But you know what? The first half, it's not like he was awful. And he was also pretty damn young. Like the first half of the season, he hit 258. He had a 343 on base, which is pretty good. It is good. And his OPS was 735. Yeah, you'd like to see that more. But again, this is a kid that, in effect, just got to the majors. And then I always mention this second half. And then you say, okay, now, see, here he comes. Second half of the season in 2021, he hit 277. So he raised, I'm going to round it off, raised his batting average by like 20 points. first half to second. His on-base percentage was exactly the same. Nothing wrong with 343, especially a player that age. And he slugged .505.
Sluggy, yep.
And, he had an 847 OPS after the All-Star break, which is really, really good. And even though he was better against left-handed pitchers in 2021, he was not awful against right-handed pitchers. He just didn't have as much power. The numbers aren't the same. And again, that's the other thing that frustrates me about him, and I guess it kind of frustrates me about Edman too. It's at what point do you just kind of figure out that maybe you need to hit from your better side? There's a lot of great hitters, right-handed hitters, that hit right-handed pitchers great.
Yes.
You don't have to be a switch hitter, right?
Agreed.
And Dane Perry, I think it was him, said something recently when he was on about how StatCast is starting to get into deeper stuff. If this was not Dane Perry, I apologize, but it was said here on the show that, StatCast is now they get deeper into the metric stuff, that Tommy Edman's bat, his swing from the left side of the plate is slower. His swing's not as fast, is not as quick as it is from the other side of the plate. Well, again, that tells you that what's the point here?
Yeah.
If you got a quicker bat when you bat right-handed, no matter what, bat right-handed. I mean, I don't know. What is it about? Well, guys, a switch hitter. That's one of those baseball things that's just so bizarre to me. Switch hitter. Yeah, when you look about it, it is a bonus. You say, well, if a guy's pretty good from both sides of the plate, that's great. How many of them really are? I mean, I need to go through this because I don't want to talk out of my what. And there have been times where there have been tremendous switch hitters from both sides of the plate. Beltran was like that for a long time. Mickey Mantle, obviously. Lance Berkman.
Murray?
Eddie Murray, yeah. I mean, grew up watching him. I mean, but I don't know, as these switch hitters, sort of emerge like the younger generation, maybe it's because, frankly, we've seen so much of Edman and Carlson, it kind of leaves us a little jaundiced. That could be it too, but I just don't get this. I really don't. But so the flashing, the warning signs, the flashing lights, the flashing signals turned on by Keith Law and Joe Sheehan, among others. So we'll see. We'll see what they do.
There's a lot to see where this thing goes.
Why are they so turned off by him?
I don't know.
Why? And this one will play well with our audience, right?
Right. Okay.
Why do they seem to be madly in love from a bromance type perspective with Alec Burleson? And it's like Dylan Carlson's a yard dog all of a sudden. How do you get to that? How do you get to that part? Now, listen, I know as they call it, bat to ball skills with Burleson are very good. And I repeat, I think he's going to be a good major league hitter. He's not consistently there yet. But the point is, it's like, why are they so enamored of Burleson? And again, Dylan Carlson's like, keep him out in the yard. He'll be all right. Make sure he got a place to go if it starts raining. We'll just we got. I'll make sure when we're having doing a pot roast or something, I'll make sure to throw bones out there for him. He'll like that. Yeah, keep him out in the yard. Keep him out in the yard.
As you brought up the term, I love it.
I just don't know how each one of these guys has gone into has sort of taken residence in that role. Now it's like, oh, Alec Burleson. I mean, the manager just can't get enough of Alec Burleson. And I'm an Alec Burleson defender, but even I'm like, come on, let's go. And Burleson's been better the last month or so. He has.
Oh, yeah, he has. He's probably going through that process that, every young hitter goes through. You bring up the term yard dog. I'm laughing at that. But the reality is I can't remember, Bernie, the last time this organization has had this many yard dogs on the roster. They got a whole plethora of guys that they don't like every other week. Contreras, they don't like
No,
one
that's
week.
right. Oh, and it drives me crazy, man.
Cabrera has been a yard dog before they moved. I mean, there's just like a whole group. It's like, how can you guys make that many mistakes?
Tyler O'Neill was a yard dog earlier this season.
Yes.
He was the second week of the year. He was a yard dog. Take him out of the lineup.
Who's next?
Put him out in the yard.
Oh,
I'm the manager.
Yeah.
I'm little Napoleon. What I say, that goes. You got to respect my power. How old are you? 19? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh. I just, I'm going to start that as a shtick type of thing. I'm going to have the Yard Dog Club. I can use it on the radio and also what I write.
I think so.
Here's an update on the Yard Dog Club. Tyler O'Neill, man, this dude, he goes from, this is his year, and he did all this training, and he's more flexible, and he won't get hurt. So he goes from, the dog that's eating, he's in the house, he's got like the nice area where he's sleeping, in like the coziest spot in the house, and he's eating the finest of foods. He's eating better than most, as yard dogs go, house dogs, eating better than most human beings, and everyone's petting him. And good boy.
Not dry dog food for him.
Good boy. And then all of a sudden, in like 20 minutes later, he's 100% yard dog. Get him out, put him in the yard. He'll probably get hurt out there, but that's okay. Well, you got to. He's a yard dog. Just put him on out there in the yard, right?
Yep. It's amazing.
And now he yard dog went away for a long time. Maybe the little manager missed him. I don't know. Now he's back in the master suite, laying on the bed.
Hadn't
right?
really done much of anything.
No,
he got one hit this week, but that's about it.
Oh boy! So who else is a yard dog right now?
Oh,
Steven Matz is he's
kind of got himself out of there.
He's back in the home. Yeah,
Libertor's a yard dog.
Oh, he's definitely a yard dog. It's like we can't tame him. You better keep him outside. This dog doesn't know what it's like being in the house. He just goes too crazy. No, you better keep him out there on the grass. You might want to put a leash on him, too. You might want to chain him up. He's got to learn things. Until he's learned, he's a bad dog, So, I don't know.
Text her real quick. Bernie, would you put Carlson in a package if you could get a very good young starting pitcher?
Probably so.
I probably would, too.
As a general concept, yeah. And that's why I've talked about the Cardinals need to bundle one of their free agent starters, whether it be, Montgomery, who's got more value than Flaherty. So we'll just say Montgomery. They need to bundle Montgomery. And if they really want to trade Dylan Carlson because they think they'll get a lot more for him, especially if he's in a bundle, you bundle Montgomery and you bundle Carlson, I bet you get a really nice return.
I would think so.
I think you will.
Yep.
Because other teams apparently view Carlson more favorably than you do. And if you are really down on him, then you might as well trade him. Because I don't know what you got to do. Once you're a yard dog, I don't know how you get back into favor for a long, long, long time. You might get back. They might have let you back in the house for a little while, But as soon as you screw up, right? As soon as you chew on like the chair cushion, right? Or chair, like you gnaw on the chair leg, right? You're back out in the yard. So, I mean, you can get back in favor once you are a yard dog. But it does.
Paulie DeYoung.
It does. Yeah.
Paulie
DeYoung is a very interesting case because he definitely was a yard dog, but it's like everybody felt sorry for him. It wasn't like, get out of here. You just get out of here. Go. Nobody likes you. It wasn't like that. It's like, oh, poor Paulie. He's a good boy. He just can't hit anymore. I wish we could help him. Maybe we could get him to a specialist to try to figure out what's wrong with him. He's such a good boy. Good doggy. Right?
Am I right? Accurate? No, that's accurate. Right on.
Because Mo wouldn't give up on him no matter what. Right?
Yep.
And he sort of had, maybe he was a yard dog, but how these people that have dogs, they build these beautiful little dog houses.
No, I've seen a few there. Yeah.
But see, they gave him his own little dog house. It's carpeted. You got some kind of heating mechanism for the winter. Paulie's a good dog. He can't help it.
We gotta get to a break.
No, Contreras.
Well, he's definitely out there.
He's a yard dog, and that one, again, is more a reflection on the people who run and manage the team.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve to be a yard dog.
Nope.
Right?
One of the best hitters in the month, and
he is. He is. All right, sorry. Man, once I get started on something like a meme like yard dog, I become irritating pretty quickly.
Somebody just sent in Brendan Ryan was a perfect yard dog.
He was, and yet he got away with a lot of stuff because he would do shticks pregame with Jim Hayes, so everyone loved him.
Yeah,
Jim Hayes kept him in a popular vein. Jim Hayes personally was responsible for making Brendan Ryan popular when there was no reason whatsoever to make him popular. Right?
He was full of
All I
energy.
needed to see when I was sitting there in Cincinnati, the not-so-great American ballpark, Chris Carpenter's on the mound. You can see flames coming out of his nostril. He just hates the Reds. He can't wait. He's all but chewing on his glove. You could all but hear him growling on the mound. And we're like, well, what's the delay here? What? And you see him all ticked off.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Brendan Donovan was down in the clubhouse fooling around. He probably had Jim Hayes down there doing a bit. I don't know. And he didn't take the he did not run out on the field. They're waiting for him. Oh man,
it's one of the old timers.
I know. I'll never forget that. Carpenter was growling.
Yeah.
I love that dude. One of my all-time favorite.
Need more of him around.